Welcome to Northern Tales, where broken beginnings don't have to mean bitter endings. In Part 4, Binta left the only life she'd ever known. She found shelter, dignity, and a second chance beside a clinic she once stormed out of in rage. And when Dr. Zainab had to leave for her residency in the UK, Binta made a quiet promise. I go continue you. In this final chapter, that promise unfolds. Because healing is not always loud. Sometimes it is small, consistent, and holy. This is Dr. Zainab and Binta, Part 5. We are not what we survived. New stories drop every Thursday and Sunday, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. There's always someone waiting for a story like this. It was 2 months after Binta began working at the clinic that she made the quiet decision to leave the brothel house. No fanfare, no drama, just a folded wrapper, a small nylon bag of clothes, and the medications Dr. Zainab had insisted she never miss. The house had grown louder in her ears, the scent of perfume and desperation clinging to every wall. It was no longer home, if it ever was. With her small belongings and a lump in her throat, Binta moved closer to the IDP camp, to a makeshift shed beside the home of one of the older patients Zainab used to visit. The elderly woman, Mama Talatu, had once told her, "As long as this life still day your body, you fit rewrite your story." It wasn't much, a shed with a leaking roof, a rickety bed frame, and 2 small jerry cans of water. But it was quiet, and it was hers. She volunteered more at the clinic now, sometimes working extra hours without pay, not because she was desperate, but because she needed to matter, to be useful. She had learned to clean the examination room the way Zainab liked, neat, sterile, and calm. The other staff, once suspicious, now nodded at her with familiarity, some even with respect. One day Zainab found her writing in a small notebook during her break. When she asked what she was writing, Binta just smiled and said, "Nah, my second life I day write." Zainab understood. They had come full circle. Binta's new home was just a few meters from the very clinic where she had once stormed out in anger. Now she walked in with quiet dignity, a faded scarf draped over her shoulders, her smile more frequent, her eyes clearer. When Zainab asked her how she felt about everything, about the diagnosis, the past, and the future, Binta simply said, "I still dey heal, doctor. But for the first time, I know dey live outside my body again. I dey live inside now." Binta had become more than just the cleaner. She was now the woman who reminded the nurses to eat when clinic hours stretched too long. The one who quietly placed extra chairs in the waiting room when the queue overflowed. The one who brought Zobo from Mama Talatu's house and shared it during afternoon breaks. She learned how to restock the supply cabinet. She helped label files. She started asking the nurses how to read blood pressure charts, just out of curiosity, she claimed. But Zainab noticed. One Tuesday, a young girl walked into the clinic, maybe 16, nervous, fidgeting. The moment she saw Binta, she paused. They stared at each other for a heartbeat longer than usual. Then the girl whispered, "Auntie Binta?" Binta smiled gently. She led her to a quiet corner, spoke with her in hushed tones, and when the girl left, she handed her a pack of condoms, a soft pat on the back, and a few words that Zainab couldn't hear, but felt deeply. Binta had become more than the sum of her past. She had become a bridge, between the clinic and the streets, between shame and safety. Zainab had gotten the email 3 weeks before. Her long-postponed residency in England was finally starting. She told the team quietly, no drama. But word spread. On her last Friday, the foundation surprised her. Nothing fancy, just balloons from Wu's Market, a cake with slightly smudged icing, and hand-printed thank you cards from patients. Matron Ndidi wore her best wrapper and even gave a half-emotional speech, ending with, "Dr. Zainab, may God bless the womb that carried you. We will never forget you." Binta didn't speak during the send-off. She just stood in the corner, arms folded, watching. But when the crowd thinned out and Zainab stepped outside to sit by the neem tree, Binta followed. She sat beside her, pulled something from her bag, a notebook, the same one she had been writing in. I write you something, she said. No be poem just me. Zainab opened to the first page. It read, Thank you for not turning your eyes away. Thank you for treating me like I had more than one chapter. Thank you for showing me that even broken girls can still carry light. Zainab blinked fast, the words swimming in her vision. Then Binta added quietly, So, when you go, no worry. I will be fine. I will be okay. I promise you. She reached out and squeezed Zainab's hand. For real this time. I will take my drugs. I go to the clinic. I will not disappear again. Zainab smiled, eyes wet. I believe you, businesswoman. They both laughed softly. Before leaving that evening, Zainab placed her stethoscope on the desk, then paused, and handed it to Binta. Keep this, just to remember. Binta shook her head, tears in her eyes. No. I no one remember you. I one continue you. Zainab's voice cracked as she whispered, Then do, please, continue. 7 years had passed. Zainab had gone on to complete her residency training in the UK. The first few months away from the clinic had been hard. The silence felt loud. She would often sit in her flat in Manchester and wonder how things were at the IDP clinic. How was matron Ndidi managing without her? And Binta, what became of her? She tried to stay in touch. At first, she called the clinic's main line and sometimes got through to Binta through matron Ndidi's phone. They would talk briefly. Binta didn't say much, but the small words she did share, I'm fine, doctor, or I'm taking my drugs, meant everything. But as time passed, the calls became less frequent. Then one day, Ndidi's number stopped going through. Zainab called for weeks, but nothing. She wrote letters to the clinic address, but received no reply. She later learned Binta had to sell her phone to buy medication, and matron Ndidi retired from the clinic. She was told Binta still worked at the clinic, although she had started volunteering with another NGO supporting young girls. Life pulled Zainab deeper into the tides of adulthood. Residency consumed her. She got married. She had 2 children, beautiful twin girls who came early and fierce into her world. Her days were filled with diapers, night calls, and rotating shifts. But despite the years and changes, there were quiet evenings when Zainab would find herself alone on her balcony, watching the sunset bleed into the sky, and think of Binta, the sharp-tongued girl who called herself a businesswoman, the girl who stared out of windows like she was watching a world she wasn't part of, the girl who once said, Maybe if I die now, no one will say I killed myself. Still, Binta lived in a quiet place in her heart, a dusty photograph in the back of her mind. Sometimes, during a long night on call, or when she saw a patient with a distant, haunted stare, Zainab would think of her. She'd whisper a silent prayer, hoping wherever Binta was, she was still fighting. Zainab became a specialist in infectious diseases. Back in Nigeria, she worked with the Federal Ministry of Health. A few weeks after she got back, she was invited to attend a national HIV/AIDS awareness event organized by several NGOs. After the keynote speeches, there was a session dedicated to testimonials from survivors and advocates. She was flipping through her notes when the compere announced, Please welcome our next speaker, a remarkable woman, a survivor, and now a counselor working with at-risk girls in the outskirts of Abuja, Binta Haruna. Zainab's head shot up, and there she was, Binta, dressed in a modest blue gown, a gray scarf neatly tied. Her skin glowed with health, her posture upright, confident. She held the microphone with steady hands and began to speak. She told her story, not all of it, but enough. She spoke about the streets, the pain, the disease, the shame, and then she spoke about healing, about finding kindness where she least expected it, a doctor, a woman who didn't just give her medicine, but gave her dignity. Zainab sat frozen. Her chest tightened as her eyes welled with tears. She didn't even realize she was crying until someone handed her a tissue. After the event, their eyes met across the room. Binta walked down slowly. There was no drama, no outburst, just 2 women who had once shared a sliver of pain and hope. When they stood face to face, neither spoke for a long moment. Then Binta smiled and whispered, "You saved my life." Zainab shook her head, barely holding back tears. "No, Binta, you saved mine. You reminded me what this profession is really about. You showed me what it means to fight." They embraced, longer than either expected. Around them, the hall buzzed with people and noise, but for that moment, it was just the two of them, remembering a time when everything was broken and still. Healing had found its way through. Binta didn't need saving anymore. She was now the one holding the rope, pulling other girls out of darkness. She had become what Zainab once was to her, a voice, a bridge, a witness. And Zainab, she had become more than just a doctor. She had become a vessel for healing that went beyond borders, beyond training, beyond medicine. When the event ended and they went their separate ways, neither felt loss, only fullness. Like a story had ended exactly where it needed to. That night, after Zainab had put her children to bed, she sat on the dining table with a bowl of ice cream while she read her WhatsApp messages, and there it was, a new message from Binta. "Doctor, today I spoke for the girls who can't speak yet, and I remembered what you told me. You matter. I tell them the same thing now, and I think they believe me. Jazakallah khairan, for everything." Zainab smiled and whispered under her breath, "Amin." Thank you for watching Dr. Zainab and Binta, Part 5. We are not what we survived. If this story meant something to you, share it. You never know whose healing might begin with a story like this. Until next time, this is Northern Tales, where every woman's story matters, especially the ones no one ever expected to end in hope.